This week, a catastrophic mid-air collision near Washington, D.C. involving a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter and an American Airlines passenger jet has left the nation in shock. This tragedy, which claimed the lives of all 67 people on board both aircraft, has sparked intense speculation and conspiracy theories. In this episode, we are going to break down the timeline of the accident, the NTSB's ongoing investigation, and the key factors under scrutiny, ranging from altitude discrepancies to visibility conditions. Plus, we dive into the political firestorm ignited by President Trump, shocker, linking FAA diversity and inclusion in DEI policies to the crash. Was it simply a tragic accident, or is there more to the story? I'm Collier Landry, Mover Nation. Hey, let's get into it.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in which Dr. John Boyle is accused of killing his wife, Maureen.
The boy confidently told the jury it was his decision to testify against his father.
I heard a scream, I heard a thud. It's about this loud.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, and always with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation, wherever you may be and however you may be watching or listening, thanks for making me a part of your day. Live from Santa Monica, California, Mover Nation, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Thanks for being here, guys. We're going to delve into this crash, which I have not really, I've been working all week and haven't had much of a chance to really dive into it. So I'm excited to break this out with you guys because I've been watching some videos of even some former pilots that are discussing this. And then we have the tragic incident that happened in Philadelphia as well, where 7 people have lost their lives in another medical transport, a medical transport that went down as well. It's just absolutely terrible. But this mid-air collision over the Potomac has been a real firestorm politically, speculatively, and I want to dive into that. First, a few things of housekeeping. Next week, and if you are a channel member or Patreon supporter, we have our live members only Collier's AV Club. I don't know what we're going to watch this coming week. I believe we're going to watch we are going to watch, I don't know why I have the Murder in Mansfield one, but this is our logo. This is Marisol. We don't have our graphics up, unfortunately. They've fallen by the wayside. But we are going to have our live AV Club, Collier's AV Club at 8 p.m. Eastern, usually the normal time of this program. So we will have a live earlier at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. So please join us. If you are a channel member or Patreon supporter, you get access to that. It's very cool. We watch a documentary or a film or a docuseries together, and it's great fun. Everybody loves it. And it has been something we've been doing for the last several months and been very popular. And we've also screened my film, A Murder in Mansfield, as well. Anyways, it's so good to see everybody. Thank you so much for the super chat. Why am I not seeing comments here? Where are the comments? Hey, there we go. Welcome to everybody. Gojo, Karen Fan, thank you so much to our mods that are here. Cat Loves Cat Skills, Amber Winnell, I see. Sharon, thank you for being here. Hound Doggy, thank you for being here. Jammin, thank you for being here. The Goodmans, thank you for gifting a membership. That is awesome. Nez T is here. Nightbot always, and the Goodmans. Our daughter Kaylee would also like to say hi to you. Thank you. Hi, Kaylee. How are you? What's going on, Kaylee? All right. So I have some things I have pulled from the YouTube, the interwebs that we will get into. Graciela Gracie G is here. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. All right. So I have been diving down the YouTube rabbit hole a little bit of this for this upcoming conversation. I just watched this discussion with a pilot that was talking about some stuff that I thought was really, really interesting about airspeed and how this collision potentially happened and who was involved and whatnot. So I'm going to play that video because that just that came up into my watch history, and I was like, oh, I got to check this out. So let me pull that up. Actually, let me give a little background here because the the investigators have released some of the cockpit conversations. I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and play through that, or I can give you, actually, maybe we'll go into an actual general description of what happened. So this is from CNN. I'm going to go ahead and share this with y'all. This will give us a little background on what happened here. And
may have been flying outside of its approved flight path.
Let me actually back this up.
Overnight, CNN has exclusively obtained 2 new videos offering a more direct angle and vantage point of the Midair tragedy between the American Eagle's flight and the Black Hawk helicopter. A warning, these videos are difficult to see as we are also learning more about these 67 lives that were lost in this collision.
Full disclosure, by the way, I hate flying in bombardiers or bombardiers or whatever they're called, these small jets that American Airlines uses, or these smaller hubs to, move you from one place to the other, like you're flying from Minneapolis to Cleveland. So I hate being on these small planes. I've been caught in thunderstorms in them where the plane dropped a couple thousand feet, scared the living Jesus out of me. Yeah, I had to go to the bathroom and clean myself after that. Yeah, I was coming back from the Dominican Republic. That was 2010. I was filming there, and the plane must have dropped like 2,000 or 3,000 feet. It got hit by lightning. It was a nightmare. We were flying from Chicago Midway to Cleveland. Awful experience. But anyways, let's play this. I'm just not a fan of those flights.
This morning, the New York Times is reporting that the helicopter may have been flying outside of its approved flight path and higher than it should have been. We'll get much more to that. Let's get to the videos. The first video we want to show you, the bright light that you see at the top is the American Airlines jet as it approached the runway. Then you see the helicopter flying directly into the frame and directly into the plane. Both aircraft immediately then crashing down into the Potomac River. This flying directly into the frame.
This is actually
let's get to the videos. The first video we want to show you, the bright light that you see at the top is the American Airlines jet as it approached the runway. Then you see the helicopter flying directly into the frame and directly into the plane. Both aircraft immediately then crashing down into the Potomac River. The second video, it appears to be surveillance video from the airport and showing very same helicopter moving along the river as the plane approaches the runway at DCA, and then the collision and the explosion and into the Potomac River. Horrifying. Wow. Both now to the investigation into how what led to that horrific crash. Both of the so-called black boxes have been recovered from the commercial jet, are being examined and analyzed. Those black boxes are going to be key to pinpointing what exactly happened in the moments before the deadly crash. CNN's Renee Marsh is following all of this live from Reagan National Airport. Renee, what is the latest that you're picking up?
Well, let's focus on the victims first. Kate, we can tell you that as of this morning, 14 bodies are still missing, 4 of them still pinned inside of the aircraft, and 2 of the soldiers who were inside of that Black Hawk helicopter have yet to be recovered. We know that recovery efforts will resume soon as sun comes up this morning. Now, we also are expecting the flight manifest with the names of the victims, all of them who were on board the commercial aircraft, to potentially be released today. And we also know that President Donald Trump has plans to meet with some of the victims' families. It is unclear when that meeting will happen. Now, as for the investigation, that is ramping up this morning. You mentioned the black boxes have been recovered from both aircraft, both the airplane as well as the Black Hawk helicopter. The NTSB telling us yesterday that they expect to have a preliminary report with a readout from these black boxes within the next 30 days. Investigators are also waiting for a crane to arrive on this crash site. That crane will be helpful in trying to remove much of this debris. That will be critical in this investigation, as well as the debris will.
Not to stoke the flames of conspiracy, but we have started a poll in the comments here on YouTube. Do you guys think that there's more to this story than we are being told about this tragic accident? Weigh in with the poll. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say.
hold clues for investigators. And Kate, this morning we're also learning about staffing in that air traffic control tower. We heard that air traffic control audio in which they warned the pilot of the Black Hawk helicopter about the commercial regional jet. And now CNN has learned that one air traffic controller was actually working 2 different tower positions directing traffic.
I do not remember the I don't remember the Michael Moore documentary. I think it's Fahrenheit 9/11, but I'm not sure. If you guys saw Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11, I'm pretty sure it's that. By the way, it's really foggy here in Santa Monica. I can barely see out my window. I can barely see the trees out in front. We had an air quality index of like 117 today. Awful air quality. I was masked up all day. Anyways, Michael Moore, I believe it's in Fahrenheit 9/11, talks about air traffic controllers and what they get paid and the jobs that they have to do. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it is. I think it's Fahrenheit 9/11. What's up, Brian W? What's up, brother? Thanks for joining us in the fog as well. That's our local law enforcement hero, keeping the Santa Monica residents and college students safe in our area. We thank you for your service, sir, in local law enforcement. And also a big fan of Marisol, who is not here. She's having a guest visit. She's staying with a friend today. They're like, we want to take her. We want to keep her for the day. I was like, okay. She was having so much fun. I couldn't let her not stay. Anyways, they talk about the air traffic controllers and the amount of money they make, the hours they work and all this. So this is an interesting sort of angle on this story.
Traffic for both local traffic as well as helicopter traffic. However, this source tells us that is not out of the norm. Kate?
And right, there's also new reporting today about some other recent close calls at DCA. What are you picking up on that?
Right. So what we have learned is just about a day before Wednesday night's deadly incident that there was another flight approaching Reagan National Airport, and it was forced to abort its first landing after a helicopter came close to its path. So concerning information that there was another situation where a helicopter yet again coming close into its path. And I've spoken to several people within the aviation industry yesterday, and they brought up this idea that it is time to ask the question as to whether these military aircraft should be flying in the same airspace along the same path as these commercial aircraft. Of course, as the NTSB wraps up its investigation, which will be many, many months from now, they will make recommendations that will essentially change aviation safety for years to come to essentially make sure that this sort of thing does not happen again. But certainly people paying a lot of attention as to whether these military aircraft should be flying in the same airspace as these commercial aircraft around this airport. Okay.
Man, if you guys can see out my window right now, every day around this time, so it's 5:16, right before sunset, the crows congregate on the power lines and in the trees and everything, but just a whole, like there must have been 200 of them right outside my window. It was like a Alfred Hitchcock movie. I'm telling you, it was like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, like The Birds. If you guys know my reference as a filmmaker, got to reference Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah, they're all on my roof right now making noise. Oh, they're so funny. Wild to see them in action in nature. Anyways, let's get back to this. They are Black Hawks.
Renee, thank you very much. John.
And as Kate was mentioning, there is also new information this morning on the Army Black Hawk helicopter in the crash. Sources tell the New York Times it appears to have been too high and out of its approved flight path. There's some new information on the pilots of the helicopter as well. Let's get right to CNN's Natasha Bertrand at the Pentagon. Natasha, what's the latest from there this morning?
Well, John, we're still trying to sort through all of the information that we're getting about this Black Hawk, and the Department of Defense, of course, is doing the same. It's interesting that the New York Times reported that this was a helicopter that was flying at about 300 feet, because the helicopters that are training as part of these missions with these Black Hawks, they're supposed to be under 200 feet. And in fact, CNN has reported that the last reading that this helicopter gave and provided to these flight radars and flight trackers was that it was at 200 feet at the time of the collision. So either that was incorrect or something else went wrong here, but that is going to be part of the investigation as well. Now, we know still that the helicopter was on what has been described to us as a pretty routine training mission. This is something that the pilots would have been experienced with, because as we reported, the pilot and the co-pilot, they've had between them about 1,500 hours of flight hours. And so they were not junior pilots. This is not something that they would have been unfamiliar with. However, Pete Hegseth, who's the Secretary of Defense, he did acknowledge yesterday that a, quote, mistake was made and that there may have been an elevation issue. Now, the Times is also reporting that the flight of the helicopter may actually have deviated a bit from its flight path. There are very specific predetermined flight routes that these helicopters are supposed to be taking. And it's our understanding that this helicopter did shift from what is known as flight path 1 to flight path 4, which may account for for why it was making those maneuvers at that time. But still, so many questions to be left answered here, including, for example, were they wearing night vision goggles, which may have something to do with their vision being impaired, as President Trump suggested yesterday. So
this next video that I'm going to play, we'll get through this one on CNN, and then I'm going to play this video from this guy who I just found on YouTube, of course, because you start searching these things and you start going through, and then all of a sudden it starts recommending videos. Hey, algorithm, right? And this guy is, I guess, a former military pilot, and he breaks down this whole thing with the cockpit, them calling in the tower, then seeing them as right before the collision hits, and that they're it's a mess. It's a mess. And he's going to weigh in. We're going to play this video because it's really interesting. But let's get back to CNN. We'll finish this out, and then I'll bring that one on.
All of these questions have yet to be answered, and I know members of Congress have similar questions. Senator Tammy Duckworth, she also told Jake Tapper yesterday that in her briefing from the FAA, there were more questions about whether this helicopter was on the appropriate flight path. And as Renee mentioned as well, we are still waiting for these two other crew members from this helicopter to be recovered. So far, only one has been done.
Right, Natasha Bertrand at the Pentagon, raising so many questions. Any one of these slight deviations certainly could have contributed to this disaster, but that is why an investigation is underway.
Recovery efforts are going to be intensifying in the Potomac River this morning as divers continue the search for the remaining victims of this tragic collision. The teams are facing significant challenges underwater in near zero visibility, even though the twisted fuselage rests in just a few feet of water.
The mud becomes an intense problem. The severe lack of visibility means that they are going through an aircraft in braille. And now we're going through an aircraft fuselage that is torn apart. So every foot, every 6 inches that you move, there's a potential of another snag, some potential injury for the divers.
And joining us.
By the way, it took me a very long time to get over my fear of flying. And now it's like probably right back to where it was, because as we know, aviation accidents in this country they don't happen very often, at least on this scale, where you have a commercial aircraft flying into a major airport. I mean, I live normally on a good day. I can see the tower from LAX is about, I think, 5 miles from me as the crow flies. No pun intended, as they're flying out my window. It's one of the busiest airports in the world. Apparently, Ronald Reagan Airport is the busiest in the United States by far. So, this stuff always plays through my mind. And it's always like, they always say the first 2 minutes to take off and the 2 minutes when you're landing is always the most dangerous time with an aircraft. So, this is going to be a lot. This is going to be weighing on my mind. I also have Santa Monica Airport right outside my window as well. Wow, these crows are crazy. There's hundreds of them flying around outside my window. It's wild. It's also, as I said, it's very foggy here. But yeah, so you don't really see this. You know what I mean? We don't see this in this country. You see this in obviously third world countries, or it happens all the time in Southeast Asia. You're always hearing about some sort of plane crash, but this is so wild that this even happened. Especially in an area like Washington, D.C. that has a huge, military presence and everything else. It's wild.
Yes, now is retired Navy captain and Navy diver Bobby Scully. Bobby, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I just have to say, imagining the horrific scenes that many of these divers are going to be encountering is very, very difficult to think about. And I am just struck by how much we owe our first responders, because the things that they do for us in the wakes of these tragedies is just phenomenal. And I'm hoping that you can take us inside and help us understand what it is like in a situation like this, especially when you are also facing incredibly adverse conditions, freezing water, that makes it even harder to do this really, really difficult job.
It is. It's a very difficult job, Casey. Thanks for having me on board. This is one of the hardest jobs that I think divers end up doing. And unfortunately, we get called upon to do this more than we like to think. It's hard, rigorous work to do. You heard in your previous piece that, it's cold, it's dark, it's a lot of hazards with the twisted metal and the aviation wire and that sort of stuff. So physically, it's a hard job. Emotionally, it's a hard job too. For a lot of divers, you're just in the mission, and
Appreciate
you try
that.
not to think about the mental aspects of the job, and you put that on hold until after the mission is done. I think a lot of us would say that, you know, we don't think about that until much, much later, but that is something that comes into play, and leadership has to deal with that and make sure that their divers are taking care of. All their first responders obviously have to be aware of that and take care of those aspects. The weather that's coming in, of course, is going to make this job even tougher physically, and it's just something that we really need to give our first responders and our divers a lot of credit for.
And breaking overnight.
All right, so that is the video from CNN. I mean, again, I want to back up and say this. And as I say on the show, I am not a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist. I do not work in law enforcement. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of shit, as you see in the intro to the show. But I do want to, I would be remiss if I didn't remind everyone that we're talking about this, but there are 67 people who've lost their lives. There are 67 families that are impacted, a minimum of 67 families that are impacted by this. And it's a real tragedy. And right now they've, I think they have 12 bodies yet to recover. I just heard on NPR recently, about 45 minutes ago. So they are very underway in the search efforts. Again, this particular broadcast was about a day and a half ago, 2 days ago on CNN. But just keep that in mind. Keep the families in your prayers, because I know we're talking about it here as if this is just, you know, this is an environment where I like to break down the mental health impacts of what goes on in someone who's been through horrific circumstances in their life and share that perspective with you guys. But there are real people's lives at stake here. There are real families, there are real people that are impacted, and you know, it's and also the military personnel and the military itself that protects this nation. You know, they are going to come under scrutiny because of what is going on, and it's just it's a mess. It's a mess. So, and the pilot of the American Airlines flight was apparently doing everything right, and you know, so there's a lot of impacts, and I just want to keep that in mind. I want to bear that in mind as we discuss this. That's all. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. All right, let me get to this. Let me get to this real quick. This guy that I found, I do not know who he is. I found it on YouTube, as I said, and it was interesting because he was breaking this down. Apparently, he is a former. He is a military, served in our military apparently. And he is breaking down has all the diagrams and everything. You know, and I was taking a shower right before the show, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I have a friend who's a pilot. I probably could have brought him on the show. I should have texted him. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years. He was doing VR 360 VR work before, and now he's back to flying planes because I saw it on his Instagram. So I could have brought him on. But anyways, let me pull this one in first. This is the cockpit conversations this is from Sky News out of Australia. We'll play this, share this tab instead. We'll play this one and see what they're talking about here.
Prior to initial descent, the crew briefed the arrival for the Troops 5 arrival, followed by an ILS approach to runway 1 at DCA. Around 8:15, the aircraft left 37,000 feet for an initial descent. At 8:39:10, Potomac approach cleared the crew for the Mount Vernon visual runway 1 approach. At 8:43:06, the crew made initial contact with the DCA tower. The tower controller then asked if the crew could switch to runway 33. After a brief discussion between the crew, they agreed to runway 33. At 8:45:27, the autopilot was disconnected. At 8:46:01, a radio transmission from the tower was audible, informing Pat 25 that traffic just south of the Wilson Bridge was a CRJ at 1,200 feet circling to runway 33.
The CRJ is the Bombardier that was flown by American Airlines.
At 8:46:29, the crew received a 1,000-foot automated call-out. At 8:46:47, DCA tower cleared other jet traffic on runway 1 for departure with no delay.
Also, to be noted too, there was a lot of talk, a lot of conjecture about there are anti-collision systems that these airplanes have, but they don't work under 1,000 feet. So when they hit 1,000 feet, it doesn't work. So that's also part of the thing. And a lot of people are like, "Why didn't that work? Why didn't that work?" Well, it's not designed to work at that altitude.
At 8:47:29, the crew received a 500-foot automated call-out. At 8:47:39, a radio transmission from the tower was audible asking Pat 25 if the CRJ was in sight. 1 second later, the crew received an automated traffic advisory stating traffic. At 8:47:42, a radio transmission from the tower was audible directing Pat 25 to pass behind the CRJ. At 8:47:58, the crew had a verbal reaction and FDR data showed the airplane beginning to increase its pitch. Sounds of impact were audible about 1 second later, followed by the end of the recording.
So that was Sky News. Let's let me show you guys this other one, which is just so wild. Where's our poll at, by the way, Mover Nation? Where is our poll at? 67% of you think that there is more to the story than what we are being told by the government. Again, as I said at the top of the show, this is, it's interesting to, how this whole thing has spawned conspiracy theories and things like that. So, I'm definitely interested to hear your opinions on this. We have 87 votes coming in. Guys, by the way, let's get these likes up. I don't know where our likes at. We got 300 people here on the show. 70 likes. Come on, guys. Can we get to over 100, please? Because if you do this, the more you like it, the more people come to watch the content, the more people we have in the conversation that can join the chat, and it's amazing. And then we can have this great engagement. So please, if you would, please share, like, subscribe if you feel like it. It helps me make more content. Trust me, it really works. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Let me hear. All right, so this is actually, let me go back here. This is the Wall Street Journal talking about the actual helicopter route as well. Thank you so much for the gifted membership. Guys, whoever's there, snatch that up, please. No catfish, Nana. I'm also having issues with flying. Yeah, I'll tell you. Oof. I'm gonna, I will probably end up having issues and nightmares about this now. Oy vey. Marissa Anderson says, I worked as a controller in that area for years. In my opinion, the helicopter was in the wrong. Well, thank you for your insight, Marissa. That's really interesting. Oh yeah, I mean, this is just this is a lot for sure to deal with. And you, Pete Hegseth, welcome to your position in Department of Defense, getting in action early. Hi vey, what a mess. All right, I'm going to play this video this guy made, who I believe, as I said, I believe he served in our armed forces, is what he claims, I believe, and I found it pretty interesting. By the way, guys, just on a total side note, the Los Angeles Lakers have acquired, by trading Anthony Davis and a future second round pick, the rights to Luka Doncic. It is a good time to be an Angelino and be a Lakers fan. That's all I'm going to say. Luka Doncic is probably my favorite player in the NBA outside of LeBron James. But anyways, go Lakers. I'm an LA guy. Go Lakers. We got Luka Doncic. My brother texted me last night. I'm looking at my text message. I'm like, is he on drugs? Lakers to get Luka Doncic. I'm like, he's out of his mind. And then of course I go to Google and oh no, he was serious. So I thought he was just commenting on some speculation, conjecture. No, it really happened. We got Luka Doncic. So anyways, let me play this. This guy, here is a flight simulator that they talk about. This is again Sky News. They're always all over our news here. This is Sky News. They actually show the flight simulator, which I think is really fascinating as well. And then I'm going to get into that this guy who has got this this video to share.
2,500 feet, about to start the descent towards 2,500 feet, about to start the descent towards the northerly runway.
And that's the strip of light I can see running away from us.
Exactly.
And the dark area in front of that,
the river.
Just losing some altitude,
just starting to descend, yeah.
Okay.
So put the gear down.
You're just on the landing gear.
Flaps.
Everything entirely normal.
Yes. So completely normal approach. You see there's a lot of lights, there'd be a lot of other traffic about, a lot of talk on the radio.
Okay. At some point on that radio, there is a request to switch runway.
Yes, to the northwesterly runway. So we're just starting to sidestep to the right.
And that was the request, sidestep the runway to take a different landing.
Yes.
Would you be worried about why that had been requested to be made?
No, it's probably fairly routine, I think, at Reagan Airport.
Can I see Congress and
some of the important buildings which all have prohibited areas around them.
Approaching minimums.
This is interesting.
How to take the autopilot out.
Right, so that's
minimums.
You taking control of the aircraft.
Yeah.
So we are in a helicopter simulator. Where are we?
So we're above Washington. We're coming down the Potomac towards the airport.
You're welcome, legal-minded friends, Karen Cole.
It looks like the helicopter was tracking over the river. So we're turning left now.
500 feet up.
400. 300.
And
these flight simulators are fascinating to me.
This is exactly the angle I reckon they were flying at. Just about here, just about at this height.
Neither perhaps will know much about it.
No, not until it actually happened, I reckon.
Woof. Oh, man. Woof. Oh, man. All right. This is, I'm going to pull this guy up here. This is a former military helicopter pilot. And he kind of scans in. This is interesting. Again, scavenging YouTube to find all the answers. This is such a rabbit hole that we can just go down. It's absolutely insane. You know, and the last time I flew a United Airlines. I was talking about United Airlines earlier today with a friend of mine because I fly Delta. I don't fly American or United anymore. Last time I was there, I was with a Marine helicopter instructor who was talking to me about helicopters and flying Blackhawks and stuff. He was a colonel. He was fascinating. He was loaded, by the way. We both were. I was drinking at the time. We were both loaded. Coming out of, where were we flying out of? I think Chicago O'Hare. Chicago O'Hare. And he had been waiting all day for his flight. He kept getting booted from flights. And he's a military, active duty military guy. And he was so angry for being bumped from all his flights. But anyways, let's get into this guy. This guy was a former helicopter pilot commenting on this.
42. A Bombardier CRJ-701, operated by PSA, took off from Wichita, Kansas, bound for Reagan National. Aboard the flight are 60 passengers, 2 pilots, and 2 flight attendants. A few hours later, PAT-25, a UH-60 attached to Bravo Company 12th Aviation Battalion, launched out of Davison Army Airfield at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which is approximately 15 miles away from Washington, D.C. Aboard the Black Hawk are 2 pilots and a crew chief. One of the pilots is an experienced instructor with over 1,000 flight hours, and the other pilot, with 500 flight hours, is undergoing a check ride. The weather on the evening of January 29th was good. No clouds, visibility unrestricted. PAT-25's evaluation flight takes the Black Hawk from Davison Field to the northern starting point of Helicopter Route 1, which is over the American Legion Bridge across the Potomac River, part of the 495 Beltway around Washington, D.C. H-1 follows the river to the south, and as you can see from the notes that accompany the navigation plate, it has several altitude restrictions along the way, basically stair-stepping from 1,300 feet down to 200 feet at the southern limit where the Anacostia River meets the Potomac. At that point, PAT-25 transitions its route of flight southbound along H-4, which also has an altitude limit of 200 feet maximum. They are operating under visual flight rules, but are in comms with Reagan Tower at that time. H-1 and H-4 are well known among military.
I'm going to stop for a second. So Marissa Anderson, would you like, sometimes we do a call-in feature on the show. Would you like to call in and share your experience with us? we would love to have you weigh in. I can open up the phone lines if that is something you are interested in doing. Let me know in the comments, and I will set that up, and we will bring you on. Absolutely will call. Fantastic. Let me we have a real live air traffic controller going to join the show. Okay, let me turn off the do not disturb. I'm going to put the number up. I'll turn off my all right. Call in number. Put on the banners here. Okay. There you go. 323-400-4846. Marissa, give us a shout. Tim Dillon has a good take on this guy. I'm sure he does. Tim Dillon has a huge show. Let's get Tim Dillon numbers. Let's get those likes up, guys. We'll see if Melissa will call. I'm trying to think if I have something to hold this. Of course, I'm never prepared for these things. Such is life. Such is life. But in the meantime, we'll get back to playing this. But we want to hear from our real life former air traffic controller. I would love to hear your experience if you would like to share it with us. Because y'all have a really tough job. That's for sure.
Helicopter crews is challenging because of the density of traffic and the overlapping restricted areas along the route. And generally, only experienced crews are allowed to use them. Meanwhile, American Airlines Flight 5342 has completed the transit from Wichita and is picking up the approach to Reagan National's runway 1 in accordance with the procedures detailed on this approach plate.
Hi, you're live on air.
Hi, this is Marissa.
Hey, Marissa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. The reason I even said I wanted to do that is, everybody's got an opinion on who's at fault.
Sure.
And there's rules that need to be followed. Like air traffic it's not an opinion-based thing. There's rules. So let me start by saying, first of all, I worked at Fort Belvoir. I talked to those Pat Helos. And I worked at Dulles Airport, which is just down the road from DCA. I never worked at DCA, but I did talk to the Pats.
Okay.
My husband, on the other hand, used to control airplanes in and out of DCA. So if you notice, you just showed that map of the helo routes. That Route 4 there does not cross the approach end of the runway where that CRJ was. There's no helo routes that cross the approach end of the runways like that. It's just not a thing. It's dangerous. Those helo routes are designed to maintain separation from those arriving aircraft. They're supposed to hug the bank, and I believe it's when they get past the Woodrow Wilson Bridge is when they can cross over the airfield.
Yeah.
So the controller issued traffic. The pilot called the traffic in sight. And I know a lot of people have a problem with this visual separation thing. However, let me explain what visual separation is. First of all, if visual separation wasn't a thing, air traffic wouldn't be as smooth as it does.
Okay.
Visual separation, yes, air traffic controllers are required to, keep their airspace safe, to control the airspace. However, there's a lot of things that go on in, it's called a Class D airspace right there. There's a lot of things that go on there.
A Class C airspace?
Class D, Class Delta.
Class Delta. Okay, well, by the way, thank you for doing this. This is amazing. I'm so stoked to have you on. Thank you for calling in. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I spent the last 24 hours, replying to ridiculous comments on YouTube. It just really bothers me. I want people to understand that there's rules that need to be followed. Just because someone thinks that stuff shouldn't go on there doesn't make it so.
Sure.
It happens every single day there. Those helicopters fly every day. And the last Midair in the U.S. happened in 2009, I think? No, not even. That wasn't even a Midair. That was a Colgan Air that went down for icing. I think it's been years and years, like 38 years or something, since there's been a Midair. So, it's not that dangerous. Like, those pilots know what they're doing. And when the pilot arrives at an airport, the first thing they do is there's a thing called an ATIS broadcast. Basically, you can call this number, and it gives you all the things that you need to know about the airport, which runway you're landing, what the altimeter is, anything that's odd around the airport. And I believe DCA always has a thing on their ATIS saying there's helicopter traffic in the area. And those pilots that fly in and out of there know that. They see them every day. But yeah, so when a pilot is given traffic and they request visual separation, we have to believe them that they see it. Like, we can't doubt the airplanes. Like, that's not a thing. Like, you have to believe the pilot when he says something.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise it wouldn't work. Like, if the pilot didn't see them, they should say something. Or if they lose the aircraft, they should say something. And I mean, I think what happened is awful, but they shouldn't have been where they were. They were in the middle of the river, and that's just not where Route 4 takes them.
Got it. So as that video that I just showed, when he made that left, that sharp left sort of in front of the helicopter, was that braking procedure to go to that different runway, or how did that work?
You mean the CRJ?
Yeah, the CRJ. Yeah.
Oh, they do that all day long.
Okay.
Okay, they have crossing grids. Runway 33 and runway 1 crosses one another.
Okay.
So they are trying to get departures out as these arrivals are coming in.
Sure.
So the pilots enjoy, it's called circling, circle to land 33 or circle to land 1. The pilots usually will request it. They don't not. It's something odd. It happens every single day, whether the pilot requests it, the controller requests it. It's just based on the operations, the amount of traffic they have, what they have going on. You know, they might have had a departure. They needed to get out there, so it was easier for them to land on 33. And I mean, I forget which one it is. Maybe it's 33, but one of them is really convenient for those pilots to land on. They literally land on the runway, make one turn, and they're right at their gates. So it's really convenient. So it happens every single day. And it's visually done. The pilots do it visually.
Got it. I'm putting your name up on the screen. This is Marissa Anderson, by the way. What was your exact profession? So I don't butcher it.
I'm an air traffic controller.
You're an air traffic controller. So, okay. So you said you were responding to a lot of comments. First of all, thank you so much again for taking time, calling in, explaining this to my audience. Talk to me a little bit about how difficult your job is, because it seems maddening to me and so precise. Talk to me about what that is so people can really grasp what you guys do. It's like beyond chess, right?
I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on all the time. The way most airports work is there's banks. You call them banks. You have like an arrival bank where a lot of your aircraft are coming into land. Then you'll have a departure bank where a lot of airplanes are going out to take off. The way that air traffic is set up, like the control tower gets them on the ground, they clear them for takeoff and clear them to land, and then they hand them off to departure. Departure is a different building. It's a radar facility, and then they take them from there. But the tower's job is to get them on and off the ground, deal with the vehicles that are on the ground. All airports do things differently, but the rules are the same. I mean, all airports have, different local rules, but the main, we have it's called the 7110.65. It's like the air traffic Bible. The rules are there. There's some local different rules, but nothing that the separation rules are the same for everybody. But yeah, the job itself it's a lot. There's a lot going on all the time. But it's broken down into positions. You only have to focus on, one thing at a time. Like,
sure.
Most towers will have a local control. They're talking to people who are coming into land. They're clearing them for takeoff. Some facilities have a local assist. DCA had that, where there's just somebody standing next to them, helping them out. They're, they're moving their strips around, which the strips contain all the information about the aircraft, where it's going, what type of airplane it is, all kinds of things. But then there's a flight data person who is responsible for making calls and doing coordination. There's a ground controller, and at Dulles, where I worked, we had 3 local controllers. We had 4 runways and 3 different local controllers that were talking to the airplanes coming in and out of the airport. One controller would get 1 or 2 runways. And the same with ground. It can be split up into 2 or 3 ground positions, just depending on the workload and how big the airport is, and how busy.
Yeah, and with Reagan Airport, how busy is that airport? Because again, I live by LAX, which is supposedly one of the busiest airports in the world. But how busy is this airport? Just to give my audience a perspective.
I mean, I think, I can't remember, but I think they might be like a level 9, or air traffic control facilities are rated.
Okay.
They go up to 12. 12 being the busiest. O'Hare is a 12. Potomac Tracon, which is the Tracon that facilitates DCA, they're a 12 there.
Okay.
Atlanta's a 12. So they're your busy airports. The towers, like Dulles was an 11. I think DCA was a 9 or a 10 at the time. I'm not sure what they are now. I know some of them have changed, but I mean, they're decently busy. I mean, I can't tell you how many aircraft per hour off the top of my head. But just they're very busy. Guys, this is Marissa Anderson. She is you're a former air traffic controller, or you're currently an air traffic controller? I'm not an air traffic controller anymore. I was injured and I lost my medical clearance, but my husband still works as a controller. So
oh wow,
I mean, I discuss this all the time with him.
So you're in a high pressure.
I was an air traffic controller for 20 years, though. I was in the military, and then I worked DoD, Army, and then FAA.
Well, thank you for your service. I appreciate that. We all appreciate your service and to our country. Thank you. And thank you so much for calling. Marissa, I want to, if you could please, we're going to put our email here. Email us, and we're going to send you a link to get a free Marisol mug or t-shirt from the show to thank you for coming on and sharing your experience. We really appreciate it.
Oh, that's so awesome of you. Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Anything else you want our audience to know before you go?
I just want to say that visual separation is used all of the time, every day, thousands of times a day.
And what is specifically visual separation? If you just want to break that down, just so we understand.
Visual separation is each aircraft, based on what kind of aircraft they are, there's a minimum separation required that I have to give. I have to provide at least 3 miles of separation between most aircraft. The bigger the aircraft, you add a mile for, it could be as many as 10 miles. But let's just stick with the CRJs, 3 miles.
Okay.
You have to provide 3 miles separation. A lot of the times, the pilots stay on final. They don't want to slow down behind the second guy just when you want them to. They don't want to keep that 3 miles behind them for speed. So they'll request visual separation, which means I see the guy in front of me, and I'm going to take the responsibility to stay away from him. I'm not going to run him over, but I want to, they just want to go a little faster. What they'll do is they'll stay higher, so they can go faster, and then they'll descend, descend and slow down when they want to. It's a tool for controllers and pilots. But visual separation takes the responsibility from the controller, and the pilot is now assuming responsibility for separation.
Got it.
And the only other thing I wanted to add was with the combining of the positions and the staffing in the tower. That is also something that happens every single day in every single facility. The positions are combined as the night goes on. Staffing is reduced as the workload, the traffic workload is reduced. It's nothing odd. It's normal. I mean, just because the controller was talking to the airplanes and the kilos doesn't make it wrong. That's what they're trained to do. Like, that is their job. The only reason that they split them up is to take the workload off of that controller because it gets so busy at certain times. But typically, I mean, that would be his job. You know, they split them up to reduce his workload. They don't combine them when the workload is too much. Like,
sure,
it's just not a thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, you know, it's just most of the comments I've been answering have to do with the staffing and visual separation, which was all normal. I mean, it's unfortunate. I can't tell you why the helicopter was over there. I don't know. I mean, if the night vision goggles had something to do with it, I don't know. I'm curious to find out what they say. But I mean, from an air traffic standpoint, I listened to the tapes. Nothing sounded abnormal. Nothing was. The only thing that was abnormal was where that helo was.
Yeah, there's Melanie Brinson asked, she says, would a helo request a visual separation for a plane like 3130 still miles away?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time.
Got it.
And you know, people can't believe that he didn't see it. Like, how can you just run into the side of something like that? Well, when that CRJ sidestepped from 3-3 or from 1 to 3-3, he made a slight right turn and then a slight left turn to get back on course, which means when he made that slight left turn, his belly is now, it was slight. So his belly was slightly towards the helo. Like, their field of vision is greatly reduced depending on how their aircraft is facing. If they're in a turn or, you know, they can't see what they can't see, you know, when they're turning, they lose visibility in some areas. I personally think the pilot lost that aircraft because he was 5 miles away when he said he saw them. I think that they were busy doing whatever they were doing in the helo, and he lost track of them. And when they looked up again, they saw the second American coming in and just assumed that was the plane that they were supposed to be watching out for, which is unfortunate. You know, they should have spoke up. They should have verified. They should have done something. I mean,
so you think the helo pilot should have done that?
Yeah, I do. And the controller did the right thing by saying, "Hey, do you have him in sight?" And he even confirmed, "Yeah, we got him in sight." You know, he's right in front of him. So why wouldn't the controller believe him? You have to believe the pilots. You have to trust their word, or things just wouldn't.
Sure.
You know, it wouldn't be a thing. Things wouldn't be a thing. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your expertise. There was one more question that came in. They said they wanted to ask. Hold on. Trying to go through. Ask the controller if she thinks that a Black Hawk forgot to change altimeter with ATIS information. I have no idea. She's speaking. Might as well be in Chinese.
Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, that's a possibility.
Got it.
I don't know. I don't think that pilot would have. I don't know. It really baffles me why they were right there, like crossing the final right there. It really baffles me.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they lost situational awareness. I have heard that when the pilots wear those night vision goggles, that the light that they can see lights that are like 50 to 100 miles away if they're high enough off the ground. And it messes with their depth perception greatly. And that's the reason that they go train with these night vision goggles is, you know, to learn how to properly assess, you know, and use your depth perception when wearing them. I mean, depth perception is everything. You literally can't do air traffic control if you pass a depth perception or if you fail a depth perception test. You have to have that. And I mean, it could have been maybe they were wearing the goggles and they just didn't understand how close it was. And another thing, too, is when a helicopter flies, they tilt their rotors to the front. So their nose is pointed down often.
Yeah.
If they were looking down, I mean, there's so many reasons that the pilots didn't see. There's so many reasons. Just because a person thinks they should have saw them doesn't make it so.
Yeah, they're also flying, like, just to be clear, they're flying at night. We all think we have better vision than we do. We're 20/20 vision and all I can see, but at night we just can't see that good. In the first place, there's a lot of lights, as we saw from the simulator that I just played the video of. You can see all the lights that were simulated there in the city and in you know, on the airports and airfields and everything. I mean, there's a lot going on, a lot of visual stimuli.
Yeah, any pilot will tell you how difficult it is to see other airplanes, especially in a city with city lights.
Got it. Do you think that this is, again, do you think this is a one-off situation? This is something that we're not going to be seeing a lot of. This was just a tragic accident.
I mean, I do. Like I said, these routes, helicopter routes, are flown all day, every day. I mean, and this is the first Midair, so in this situation. So yeah, I don't see it being a thing.
Got it.
It's really unfortunate.
Well, Marissa Anderson, again, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your expertise. Marissa Anderson was a former air traffic controller at Dulles International Airport. Is that correct, in D.C.?
Yeah.
And her husband is also an air traffic controller. So a lot of high stakes poker being played in that household. And thank you so much again for your service to our country. And I greatly appreciate you. Again, please email us at info@collierlandry.com. We'll send you out some swag from the show.
Oh, you're so awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
How cool was that? If you have not hit that like button, you should hit that like button. There are 484 people in here. Let's get these likes way up, guys. I don't even know where they're at now. Big shout out to Marissa Anderson for coming on. How often do you get this? A real live person with real live expertise, not just some person that's in a media pool. This is a real person who's worked in this field to give us their expertise. That's what you get on this channel, guys. That's what you get on this channel. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Yes, everybody loved you, Marissa. Thank you. Let's see where our poll is. But again, it's always good in these situations to clear up. Hey, let's not blame, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Again, being an air traffic controller is a job that I can't even imagine because you're always on. It's really hard to be on in front of a camera for an hour and a half talking to y'all, let alone lives at stake and people in the air. I mean, planes fly at night all the time. And again, I'm somebody who was very terrified of flying for many, many years. And I'll tell you, I used to just rat wheel in my head while I was on the plane. Every time we would get in turbulence or whatever, I think the plane was going to fall out of the sky. It made no sense. But I would always think of how are the pilots able to see at night? How are they able to fly? How are they not able to? It's people like this that do this job that keep us safe in the skies. And, so again, it's great to have a real world. It's great to have a real person weigh in, a professional with their experience, not just some talking head on a news program. I digress. Guys, where are our likes at? 197. Come on. There's got to be more than 196. Somebody took a like away. Come on, guys. We got to get those likes up, please. It helps to, it really helps to build the show, and we can bring wonderful calling guests like Marissa, which was amazing. I will play this other video that I was sharing with you guys. We'll go back to this military helo pilot who's talking about this, and we'll see. But again, Marissa just offered some great, amazing advice, or amazing insight, not advice, amazing insight into what went down there. So let's pull this back up, if we will.
They're also being controlled by Reagan Tower, but on a different frequency than PAT 25. As Flight 5342 nears the airport, one of the pilots transmits that they're visual on runway 1. In response, the tower controller asks if they can take runway 33, to which the pilot replies, "Yeah, we can do 33. At that point, the tower clears the CRJ for landing. This approach plate shows that the runway 33 approach takes aircraft from an altitude of 1,700 feet at the initial approach fix over the Potomac River, 3.6 nautical miles south of the airport, to an altitude of 490 feet at the visual guidance fix over the land east of the river, 0.6 nautical miles from the field." Now, the evening of this mishap, I was in San Diego attending a reception for the Tailhook Association, and I ran into a good friend, a Naval Academy classmate, who flew Tomcats before becoming an airline pilot for American. He's flown into Reagan a lot, and he described the runway 1 to 33.
Let me just point out that this guy also has guitars in the background. I just noticed that he had a Gibson hat on, and I'm like, what do you say? I have a Gibson hat on, and then he's got the Marshall stack in the background. Oh, this guy's cool. I'm going to subscribe to this guy just because he got a cool jacket. I should have worn my flight jacket. That's what I should have worn to do this show. I should have put on my flight jacket that I have. Maybe I'll go downstairs and get it before the show's done, and I'll join this guy. But how cool is that? Yes, Nez T, planes are magic. That's that's all I came to from flight school. That's planes are wild. I remember I had a friend that worked for Boeing for years, and he would look up at the 747, 750 flying in the air, and he would just be like, every time I look at them, I'm just amazed that they fly. He's like, because they come to us in a giant, barracks or bunker or hangar facility, and he said they're in like a million pieces. They're like a million pieces, these airplanes. And then he would assemble them. He would explain to me how all the wings work, that there's metal that goes through the rivets in the wings to make sure that when those wings bend, and they can still, and there's all this steel gauge wire that goes through. It's aeronautical stuff is fascinating to me. It's just it's wild. Anyways, let's get back to this dude who I don't even know his YouTube channel. What is this? This is Ward Carroll, 631,000 subscribers.
Free approach is one of the most challenging in the country in that it requires pilots to visually deviate to the east before fairly aggressively turning back to the northwest to line up with runway 33, which is only about 5,200 feet long. He compared the approach to landing on an aircraft carrier using the Case 1 pattern. As Flight 5342 is back over the river on final glide path, the tower controller's screen is giving him a CA, or collision avoidance warning, so he asks Pat 25, do you have the CRJ in sight? And then gives them instructions to pass behind Flight 5342, which would be a deviation to the east. Pat 25 replies, aircraft in sight, and then says, requesting separation, which is sort of confusing because the tower has already told them to pass behind the airliner. Several camera views captured what happened next. Here's the view from the Kennedy Center, which is upriver from DCA. You can see the Lincoln Memorial and the 14th Street Bridge below, and another aircraft that just took off right before the collision happens. Here's a zoomed-in version of that same view. Here's a view from somebody who is driving onto Joint Base Bowling, which is across the river due east of DCA. And here's footage captured by a bystander at the airport. The Midair killed 64 people aboard the CRJ and 3 soldiers in the Black Hawk. So how did this happen? Well, one of my Patreon patrons, who's a private pilot and civil aviation insider, forwarded me a Reddit thread that provides what I think is a credible explanation for what might have happened from a military helicopter veteran. So let me read it to you. He goes by Tupperwolf and identifies himself as a Coast Guard helo pilot who's flown that route, meaning helo routes 1 and 4, 1,000 times. A few paragraphs down, Tupperwolf writes, landing on 33 is not as common as landing on runway 1. Airliners are often not cleared / switched to runway 33 until just a few miles south of the Wilson Bridge. Let's say the H-60 is southbound and is told to maintain visual separation with the landing CRJ. The 60 crew may not have caught that the CRJ in question was landing 33, which is less common. They look south and see lights of the next aircraft lined up for runway 1. And they report, quote, traffic in sight will maintain visual separation, end quote. Then they cruise south, looking south.
Visual separation.
Maybe the CRJ is a little low on their approach and the H-60 is accidentally a little high on their route and fails to see the CRJ approaching from their 10 o'clock. The CRJ is focused on DCA, which is surrounded by a sea of lights in the metro area. They don't notice one small set of lights out of place at their 1 to 2 o'clock as they focus on the runway. The controller believes the helo will maintain visual separation, so wouldn't suspect a problem until it's too late to do anything. Bam. Tupperwolf's hypothesis is backed up by this ATC radar screen grab that Juan at the Blanco Lirio channel highlighted in his latest episode on this topic. The display shows Pat 25 deviating above the minimum H4 altitude as Flight 5342 is descending on the approach. Tupperwolf goes on to address the issue around whether or not the pilots were wearing night vision goggles, something Secretary of Defense Hegseth confirmed that they had in their possession on that flight. However, at this point, it's unknown if they were actually wearing them. Tupperwolf writes the following. I'm in the Coast Guard, but I assume this Army crew likely had NVGs, but goggles are not a panacea. They don't show color. They dramatically limit your peripheral views, and in bright urban environments, they can get oversaturated, also known as washed out.
Now, just to point out, this is something that Marissa Anderson, who we just had on the show, former air traffic controller, served our military in the United States, mentioned already, talked about this, the night vision goggles, the visual separation. So kudos to her for coming on the show. She should have her own YouTube channel. Look at this. Anyways, guys, I did throw on the flight jacket, by the way. This was like, I went to, it says like an F-14 Tomcat patch on it. So this is a funny story is this my dad, my real father, my birth father, the criminal murderer that he is, he bought this jacket for me, or he bought this jacket for himself and put all these patches on because, as you guys know, he claimed that he was a Navy fighter pilot. So I ended up with this in like a bunch of stuff. I ripped off his fake phony patch. I had my own patch made. Hold on, let's see here. Leather patch with my name and Los Angeles with a with a motorcycle wheel with wings. For those of you who don't know, I love cameras, chihuahuas, and motorcycles. Although I do not currently own one right now because I just don't. But I love bikes a lot. But anyways, so I said I was gonna get my flight jacket out just to join this guy because I thought he was kind of cool. Anyways, silly me, goofy me. Anyways,
flying through DC, it can change their peripheral vision.
I think
key
this
moments.
is all really good intel. And again, Marissa for coming on the program and sharing her knowledge as well. I'm just going to kind of skim through this again. This is the video. It looks like he has the same cockpit video that we were
pointed out about Pat 25 potentially looking at the wrong airliner down the river when asked by Tower if they had the CRJ in sight. The CRJ's co-pilot may have been looking outside the cockpit in accordance with his responsibilities, but missed it because of how it was coming at them. Let's go to the training aids to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So this KLM 777 will represent the CRJ. The CRJ is in the final phase of the approach to runway 33 descending. The Black Hawk is southbound on H4. So CRJ coming high to low, passing through 400 feet. As we saw from that radar depiction, it looks like the Black Hawk came out of the altitude block and went above the maximum allowed altitude of 200 feet for H4 and was passing through at least 300 feet as depicted on that radar. So perhaps even if that co-pilot was looking out, he couldn't see the Black Hawk coming at them from low to high. And at the same time, this helicopter crew who thought they'd spotted the traffic that was called out to them, but were looking at airplanes that were downriver from the CRJ, didn't look up to see that they were about to hit the airliner. So perhaps it was a high to low against a low to high out of everybody's scan that it resulted in the collision. But again, that's just a hypothesis. I don't know that to be true. We'll let the investigation teams do their work. This Midair was the deadliest airplane crash in the U.S. since November 12, 2001, when an American Airlines flight slammed into the residential area of Bell Harbor, New York, just after takeoff from Kennedy Airport, killing all 260 people aboard and 5 people on the ground. The last major fatal crash involving a U.S. commercial airline occurred in 2009 near Buffalo, New York. Everyone aboard the Continental Airlines Bombardier DHC-8 propeller plane was killed, along with 1 person on the ground, bringing that total death toll to 50. All right, that'll do it for this episode. We'll keep our eyes on the situation and bring you updates as they become available. In the meantime, our sympathies go out to all of those who lost loved ones in this tragic event.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said, Ward Carroll. I'm going to go subscribe to his channel just because. And I'm also going to see how I like his video. There we go, guys. Hit that like button. It costs nothing. It's a free way to help us all out, to help out the show, show your support. Greatly appreciate you guys doing that. Where are our likes up to? And Colleen D, thank you so much for the super chat. Catless Cat Skills, thank you for the super chat, super stickers. Greatly appreciate you guys supporting the Goodmans. Thank you for the gifted memberships from Karen Fan, Colleen D, Graciela G, Gracie G, and the Goodmans. Thank you guys so much. How awesome. I was when I was thinking about doing the show earlier today, I was like, I'm learning so much about this tragedy. I've been working on another project this week and I'd wanted to cover it earlier. And how blessed are we to have somebody like Marissa call in, give us some expert advice, some real world advice, or I keep saying advice, some real world experience working as an air traffic controller in the area and sharing her expertise with us. Like, how amazing is that, guys? Again, this is why this podcast is so fun to do. It's so fun to do lives with you guys because we get to have all that and all that interaction. You guys in the chat, thank you so much. Big shout out to our channel moderators for being here today. And here, let me show you guys this jacket. Here we go. I'll show you all the cool patches. There's some on the back too. I don't know. I think you all can see it. Anyways, yeah. So my dad had all these put on. And this is probably a jacket that he ended up because it certainly didn't fit a little kid. Probably used it to impress the ladies with his fake military patches. But anyways, I ended up with it in a box. I found it when I was I guess I found it when I was in high school. And then I saved it. And I think I broke it out like about 5 years ago when Kanye West was always wearing all the bomber jackets no, that wasn't pandemic. So like 2016, 2017, I broke it out because it was all the rage at the time because they were selling them at Gucci for thousands of dollars. Barney was selling them. There were all these flight jackets. They were like all the rage. Everybody had them on in LA. So I had an original one, like an OG one that I really liked. Anyways, Mover Nation, we get through another one. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that you guys found this informative and you guys appreciate it. And again, big shout out to Marissa Anderson. Again, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your expertise with us. On another note, I do want to say, as this gentleman brought out, and as I brought up earlier in the program, there are 67 people involved in this incident that have lost their lives. There are 67 plus families that have been impacted, not to mention the lives that have been impacted of the air traffic controllers that were working that night, the military crews that were supporting this Black Hawk crew that were their comrades and our arms and our brothers and sisters in arms, and serving in our U.S. military, and just the impact on the greater Washington D.C. area, and also those around the world have been watching this. Like, we are all impacted by trauma like this. We are all impacted by these stories, and they're deeply personal. And it's a good time to really take a moment and reflect on our lives, reflect on the mental health challenges that an incident like this poses on us, and to be a reminder to be really kind to one another and ourselves, because we never know when our number is going to be called. Again, to be, when I think about what happened, I just pray no one suffered, that it was just so instantaneous and over in a millisecond, and those people are on to whatever your religious beliefs are, they're on to a better place. So keep them and their families in your prayers when you're discussing this, and because sometimes we forget the really human impact of all of this and how this affects the world around us. Anyways, again, big shout out to everyone who joined the program today. Please, guys, before you leave, smash that like button, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe if you wouldn't mind. And hey, on that note, here's the outro. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support today's program, please click the links in the description of the show notes of today's episode. And if you like this video, check out this one right here or this one right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because it helps with the algorithm. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. I'll see y'all on the next one. Good girl, Marisol. Good girl.